I've been mixing live shows for about 10 years. It's my only job, so I guess that makes me a professional. Now, I've seen and done a lot of wacky stuff in my time. I've made a lot of mistakes and I've tried a lot of different techniques. And there's a lot of things that I just don't do anymore. Some of them I really recommend against, and some of them are just personal taste and I don't like doing them. So here are 10 things that I never do as a live sound engineer. Or I should say that I never do them anymore, because these are all things that I have done and I've stopped doing them for one reason or another. Maybe I'll start again, but who knows? Let's dive in. The first thing that I don't do anymore is ring out the PA with an SM58. So back when I started mixing, I was mixing in little basement venues and I used to go in and, well, in the first place, I never even rung out the PA because I didn't know what that was. But then once I learned that I should be ringing out the PA, the way I learned to do it was that you grab a 58 and you turn it up, it starts feeding back, and then you turn around to your graphic EQ, which is, analog hardware EQ over here, and then you notch out the frequencies that are feeding back. And then you just do that and you push it a bit and you notch out more frequencies until you got that SM58 nice and loud in your venue. And then once it's nice and loud, you just do the show. And you don't really give a thought to the rest of the frequency spectrum and how you've butchered it, right? But the thing is that I don't do that anymore because I don't necessarily need to, but at that point in time, I think I did need to. Because when you're in a tiny little basement venue, the main problem that you come up against is getting the vocal above the band. And actually, this kind of aggressive EQ can get the vocal above the band. So I never do it anymore, but that's because I work on bigger stages and there's more PA sound and less band sound. And I need to make sure that that PA is reproducing the full frequency spectrum so that tracks, bass, drums, and everything sounds rich and clear coming out of the PA. In a basement venue, the backline creates like 80% of the sound, and the PA is really mostly for the vocals. So that's why I did it. That's why I don't do it anymore. The second thing that I don't do anymore is plug a Minijack to XLR cable directly into the mixer without using a DI box. I'll tell you why. Because I used to do that to play tracks and test PA systems. And then one day, someone thought it would be a good idea to enable the phantom power on input 1 and 2 on the mixer. I plugged it in and goodbye telephone, right? That was my phone, gone. It was like an HTC 10 or HTC 1. I can't remember what it was called years ago. But didn't work anymore. The battery lasted about 20 minutes and it overheated every time I turned it on. So don't do that. Always use a DI box. And this is something I would never go back to doing. Always use a mini jack to 2 jack cables if you can. And if you need to use XLR, go through a DI box. The third thing that I never do anymore is parallel compression. Back in the day when I started mixing, I used to always have a parallel group for my drums, and I would compress the hell out of it and mix that in with the rest of the drum kit. And I think I just heard that it was cool. And over time, I kind of learned that less is more, and I just stopped using parallel compression on just about anything. Now, this is something I'd say that if you like it and it works for you, then go ahead. But it's just a matter of personal taste. I never do that anymore. So if you think that you need to, you don't need to. I'm a professional, apparently, and I never do it. If you're already working as a live sound engineer, but you think that you could level up, you'd like to do bigger shows and you'd like to fill your calendar more, then you should check out my live sound career accelerator. I'm launching it this summer. So if you check the link in the description below this video, you can fill out the application form. And if you're a good fit, then I'll get in touch with you and we can have a chat about you joining the program. The sole aim of this program is to fill your calendar with live sound work. So I'll take you from where you are now to a full calendar in 6 months. Fill out the application form below and we'll talk then. The number 4 thing that I never do anymore is I never assume that the people at the venue are the band that are supposed to be playing that night. I always double check with them. Hi, are you X band? And you're supposed to be playing in this venue tonight. Because one time, years ago, I had a band come in and we started loading everything up, put a drum kit on the stage, started getting everything mic'd up, and then their manager came down like 25 minutes later after we'd got everything in place pretty much and just said,
"This isn't the right venue."
We had a laugh and it turned out they were supposed to be in the venue next door. Who'd have thought? So that was a waste of time. Had to go next door, collect the correct band, had to deliver that band to the correct venue, and lost like an hour of setup and sound check time. So when someone walks into your venue, always confirm that they are who you think they are and that they are playing in your venue tonight. Number 5 thing that I never do anymore is I never EQ with my eyes. I'm kind of lucky enough that I started live sound on analog mixers when EQing with your eyes isn't really an option. You mostly do it by touch. But I have to admit that when I started using digital mixers like the M32, I look a lot at that graph and look at like a cut that looks nice. It doesn't make a difference, right? Like the cut might look absolutely huge and gargantuan, but if it's actually only 6 decibels, then what does it matter? What matters is what you hear. So don't EQ with your eyes, EQ with your ears. The number 6 thing that I never do anymore is I never start a show on someone else's scene or save file, because you have no idea what kind of crazy stuff they're doing in there. Quite recently, like a couple of years ago, I filled in for a colleague on a sort of multi-day venue festival sort of thing, right? And so that meant that he had done day 1 and day 2, and I was coming in to do day 3. And he said, mixer is all set up, everything's plugged in, mics are on the stage, drum kit's on the stage, everything's ready to go. There's no time for sound checks, you just gotta roll with it. So I did, right? Great engineer, by the way, fantastic. But all sorts of crazy stuff going on, sends, channels inserted into choruses being returned on input channels and being routed to separate buses. Insane stuff going on. I swear it took me 20 minutes to even just work out where the sound was going. I'd mute things, they wouldn't be muted. I'd be in the effects going, why is there a chorus on my vocal? I don't want there to be a chorus on my vocal. So don't do it. Now, whenever I rock up to a mixer, it doesn't matter. I have my own little file, which is my festival patch, and I always load that up and go, no matter what. The number 7 thing that I never do is I never use plugins on a laptop when I'm mixing. I have played around with using plugins live, right? But it complicates my workflow and I feel like I don't need it. I always feel like I get a result that I'm happy with, the band's happy with, the audience is happy with, and the promoter is happy with without using plugins. And if I can provide that result without using plugins, then it would just be my ego wanting to complicate things to add plugins. So maybe I will add them at some point down the line, but right now I just don't see why I would do that because everything's working and everyone's happy. So I never use plugins. Number 8 for things that I never do is I never actually use groups when I'm mixing. A lot of people are like, wow, this is crazy, you got to use groups, right? And do you know what? I don't, right? Like, as I mentioned in the beginning, I used to use groups. I used to have a vocal group and I used to have a drum group. And I don't really know what I gained from that. As I said in the previous point, like my mixes, I'm happy with them and everyone else who's a stakeholder in the show is happy with them and I don't use groups. So why overcomplicate things? Like it works for me, so I don't do it. Now, I'm not saying I won't ever do it. Maybe there will come a time when I think, I want to play with parallel compression or groups again. And I will. But at the moment, I never use groups. The number 9, this is getting complicated, 9 thing that I never do anymore is I never scan wireless frequencies just using the belt pack or whatever that's there. I always coordinate using a scan on Wireless Workbench or something like that because I need to see what is happening in the sort of wireless frequencies, the wireless, the radio spectrum, right? I need to see what's happening there. I need to know, even if Shure says, yeah, this frequency is good, I want to know just how close I am to that TV channel or to that other transmitter. And although Shure might pick a frequency that's available, if I can get another 10 megahertz away from the next opposing frequency, I'm probably going to do that. So I never do it just in the belt pack anymore. I always use Wireless Workbench, and I would advise you to, if you can. Number 10 for things I never do anymore is I never start a sound check before checking my output routing. I always check that left goes to left and right goes to right. I always check that all of the speakers are playing, and I always check that all of the monitors go to the correct person. Because if you start a sound check and someone says, more vocal please, you turn up the vocal, half the time they just go, yeah, I think that's okay. And actually they didn't get any. The guitarist over there in the corner are getting tons and tons of vocal, he's just saying nothing. And then the singers over there are getting no vocal and they're saying,
Yeah, I think that's good, right?
Placebo is a hell of a drug, so I always double check just to make sure that everyone has the correct monitor mix. And a bonus thing that I never do anymore is I never trust anything, right? And surely you got the impression from all of this, right? Everything just needs to be confirmed multiple times. You just need to be like, is this what's happening? Is that what you're bringing? Is that how you want it connected? Are you actually hearing this? Never trust that anything is just set. Never trust that someone else has done it for you. Always double check. So I hope that was useful. Remember, if you want to be a professional live sound engineer, you want to build a career in live sound, and you have already started and you've got a little bit of experience behind you, you should apply for the Live Sound Career Accelerator. Click the link in the description down below and fill out the application form. If you're a good fit, I'll be in touch and we will fill your calendar with paid work. I'll leave a video up here on something else that I ranted about, which is kind of interesting, the highs and lows of being a sound engineer. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video, or however I usually end these videos. Goodbye.